So in this digital lecture and the tutorial for this session, we'll examine how to take a basic business model and build the framework needed to convert this into a real business. And we'll do this by working through the practical example of the meals on the bus case, which has been provided for this purpose. So by the end of this session, you should be able to explain the process of developing a feasibility plan. You should be able to apply the process of feasibility planning to your own business idea, and you should also be able to build a simple financial model for your own business idea. So having generated and filtered ideas and developed a basic business model, the entrepreneur then needs to consider the next step in the process, namely the development of a credible plan. The plan is basically just a written document that explains and analyses an existing or proposed business model. Essentially, the function of the plan is to communicate the overall business model and to convey the credibility of the business idea. And it also acts as an organising tool for the entrepreneur and shows that it can actually be done. However, simply developing a plan will not guarantee success. The plan is basically a set of guesses, and it's simply not possible to accurately predict the future performance of any business. Therefore, it's important to recognise that uncertainty cannot be totally eliminated from the process. And if the plan is to have any credibility at all, it's essential to use accurate, unbiased and up-to-date information. So in this module, we'll be developing a feasibility plan which contains far less detail than a full business plan. And for the group assignment, you must use the templates provided on the virtual learning environment to develop your feasibility plan. The two templates you'll be using are the market screening test and the business model canvas, and together these two documents form your feasibility plan. Depending on what the entrepreneur is actually trying to do, there are various types of plan which they may need to develop, each of which has its own specific purpose. A strategic plan, for example, sets out the long-term focus for the business. A business plan focuses on the operational issues of a business, and a feasibility plan highlights whether an idea is doable or not. And this is what we'll be using in this module to present your business case. And in order to do this, it's important to understand the audience who may be interested in reading the plan. In the real world, the entrepreneur may need to present a plan which articulates their vision for the business to any number of key stakeholders such as business partners, employees, financial investors, landlords, suppliers, or enterprise support agencies. In order to effectively communicate the entrepreneur's vision, a good feasibility plan will need to highlight the business objectives, and these should be smart and should consider short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals for the business. So in order to better understand how the business model comes together in the feasibility plan, we'll examine the meals on the bus case summarised here. And as ever, be prepared to discuss your thoughts on this in the tutorial for this session, focusing on the key aspects of the business model and also the financial model. And you might find it helpful to keep in mind the following questions. Firstly, what are the positive and the negative aspects of the business model? Also, what financial issues do you think the business will have? And lastly, to what extent does this business idea pass the viable, desirable and feasible test? And remember that this is the same logic and process we'll be applying to your own business idea. So you'll need to apply this to your own idea in order to develop your own feasibility plan. So at this point, it might be useful to take a quick look at the projected financial position of the meals on the bus case after its first year of trading, and here we can see the projected profit and loss for year one. Now, if these figures were proven to be true in time, then the business would make just under £55,000 in sales and generate a profit of just under £6,000 in the first year. So the question here is this okay? And next, remembering that what we've learned from the profit and loss, look at the business objectives for meals on the bus, and here you should consider, are they smart, are they detailed enough, and do they cover short, medium and long-term goals? And if the answer to any of these questions is no, then think about how we can improve this in order to present a stronger business case. And again, you should be thinking here also about what the objectives for your own business should look like when you apply this process to it. Another important consideration for the entrepreneur and for your own idea is the business team. And as organisations grow, clearly the entrepreneur's role must also change. The managing role needs to adapt to increases in the number of employees and the volume and complexity of the work. And when thinking about the best structure for the business, you'll need to address the following key issues. And the first of these is strategy and operation. And here you need to articulate what essential tasks and activities the enterprise will perform. Next we have organisation, and that's concerned with how tasks will be structured and coordinated. And then we have staffing, and here you need to explain who should do the work and what skills they have, and also what skills will they need to develop to help them to run the business. And lastly, we have cost implications, and this involves deciding if you can afford to pay someone to do elements of the work, or should you try to do everything yourself. So look again at the meals on the bus case and consider to what extent these aspects are explained, and again, how does this information affect your own idea. Next, we need to consider business premises, and this involves establishing the best option for the business in terms of a trading base. And when developing a new enterprise, the physical infrastructure is important, and the following aspects should be considered. Firstly, the type of premises selected must be appropriate to the needs of the business, especially if the business will perform specialist activities. Next, you need to consider the location of premises, and this is always critical, as choosing the wrong location can be disastrous. And lastly, we need to think about the configuration of the business premises in terms of layout and design. So looking again at meals on the bus, when considering the premises needs of this business, we need to think about more than just the bus itself, as we also need to think about appropriate storage for the bus and also storage for stock and equipment. Again, these are things you need to consider when attempting to explain your own idea in your own feasibility plan. The next consideration is staff, and there are a number of factors which can affect staffing levels in any business, such as the nature of the work, the volume of the work, and also any operational requirements such as opening hours and also any preparation time that's required. So looking at the meals on the bus case, with the information we've been given, do you think the staffing levels look adequate for the type and level of work which the business would have to carry out and perform? And when you come to apply this thinking to your business, you might want to think about creating a staff rota to support your argument around staff levels, and then attaching this as an appendix. So next we need to think about cost structure, and whether business costs are fixed or whether they're variable. They're a real concern for any entrepreneur, and these need to be structured in such a way that the business is given a reasonable chance of becoming sustainable. And this means consideration must be given to the type of problems which arise around costs, and also you need to think about potential solutions to these problems. So the first thing to consider here is high startup costs, and the mistake that many new business owners often make is to borrow and spend more than is actually needed to set up and start the business. This can place a heavy financial burden on the business and impact significantly on cash flow. And the solution to this is to look very hard at what you actually need to start and try to make do with less. The next issue that can arise is carrying too much stock, and poor inventory control can result in significant sums of cash tied up in stock which is slow to sell. This is to be avoided by focusing on ordering only what is needed, whilst ensuring you can replenish your stock quickly if demand rises. Alternatively, you can focus on sales promotion in order to move the stock that is slow to sell. Another financial problem for the entrepreneur is bad payments, and any business can encounter financial difficulties for a variety of reasons. However, poor credit control is a common cause. The simplest solution to this is simply to not offer credit terms to the customer. We also need to think about seasonality, and most businesses experience seasonal peaks and troughs which are specific to their sector or geographical location. One way to offset the impact of seasonality is to build up reserves of cash to protect against reduced sales during slower periods. High cash burn rate can also present problems for the business. And a business can make a profit, but if it runs out of cash, it's out of business. The business burns cash continuously because of fixed costs, which are expenses incurred regardless of sales, and also variable costs, which are expenses which are linked directly to the sale. So for example, food for a catering company. A business which does not have the cash to meet its operating expenses is deemed to be insolvent, and sooner or later it will be forced to cease trading. Reducing costs can allow a business in difficulty to trade on. Cash is critical as it is essential in order to run the business on a day-to-day basis. If a business is trading but it seems impossible to generate a surplus of cash, then the issue may be with the profit margin. Profit is simply the surplus generated by the operating activities of the business minus the cost of operation, and it's needed in order to generate a surplus to reinvest and develop and grow the business. And the last thing to consider here is not having enough pay for the business owner. And when business owners are unable to pay themselves regularly, this is generally because the business lacks the financial reserves needed to take confidence in the business's ability to generate a regular surplus. And again, this could be linked to issues around profit or the cash burn rate. So returning to the meals on the bus case, are there any issues you note in any of these areas? And if so, does this funding package for this business look realistic? And with the information you have at this stage, if you were in that position, would you support this business with a loan? And again, consider how you'll demonstrate in your own feasibility plan that you have contingencies in place for your own business idea to deal with any of these issues if they arise. So now let's look at how to build a simple financial model from a business idea. And to do this, we need to think about pricing, revenue streams, and cost structure. So the following activity is designed to provide the opportunity for you to begin to explore some of the basic financial aspects around starting a small business. And again, be prepared to discuss your thoughts on this with your class in your tutorial. So consider this. A local student in their first year of study at this campus is running low on cash. They need to personally make at least £500 to cover expenses. Getting a part-time job is an option, but there are no opportunities around for this. The solution then is to start a small business with the other two members of a band to which they belong, and their idea is to hold gigs and sell tickets to their friends, family and local music lovers. So considering what we've learned, build a financial model for this idea and think about what risks are involved in this venture. Consider how these risks could be reduced, and with what you currently know, make a decision on whether or not you would go ahead with this project. So it should be noted that most new businesses struggle to get their pricing strategy right, and often they strive to be both better and cheaper than the competition, and this is a mistake. Regardless of the strategy employed, the basic formula on which a business will base its pricing can be described as price equals basic production costs plus own costs plus profit. And what we have learned, you should be able to use this formula and the basic budget planner template provided to capture the basic costs for your own business idea. And remember that some explanation of what these numbers mean will need to be included in your feasibility plan, otherwise the audience will not understand your assumptions. So looking more closely at the financial information for Meals on the Bus, what do you think about how the business has priced its products? Also, is the average customer spend identified here realistic? And lastly, what do you think about the product range which has been identified? Is it appropriate? Is there enough products here? Is there anything missing that you would expect to be included? And remember here that for this module, you're not expected to develop a full set of financial projections or cash flows. However, you must make a reasonable estimate of what you will sell, what you will charge, and how much you will sell, just as we have seen with the Meals on the Bus case. Ultimately, this is a set of guesses, but these should be educated guesses which you can back up with market research and other evidence. So looking at the sales projections for Meals on the Bus, we can see evidence of a build-up in monthly sales as the business starts to secure more customers. And there also appears to be evidence of seasonality here. But are the income and expenditure projections achievable? Are the projections realistic in terms of startup and seasonality? And what logically could you do to offset any seasonal trends? And also, what should the sales projections and seasonal trends look like for your own business idea? And remember that the group assignment asks you to make a recommendation on the feasibility of your business, and you must choose from one of the following decisions, namely proceed with the business idea, do not proceed with the idea, or more research is required to make a more informed choice. And remember, you must explain your reasoning behind your decision. And taking a final look at meals on the bus, we need to think about sustainability. And here we have the projected business balance sheet at the end of the first 12 months of trading. So looking at the information provided here, is this business model scalable? Meaning, is the business in a position to survive and grow at the end of year one? And lastly, thinking about everything we've learned, would you choose to start this business if you were the potential owner entrepreneur? So I hope that this has provided some insight into how we can take a business model and build the basic framework needed to convert this into a real business by applying a structured process to build a series of logical assumptions.